everyone. Welcome to our next episode of Sunday Prep. We are coming back to once again reflect upon the scriptures for this coming Sunday. Scripture readings that speak to us in a different ways, but at the end to strengthen us and lead us closer to God. And that's what we are here coming back every week to do. But before we go any further, Jim, tell me because. My perspective of being back to school is different. But I know for you as a parent that feels way different. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah, well, I think it's great. The first week of school is, it's right up there with the last week of school, right? So you end school in June and there's like just the excitement, and then going to school is just like a party. You see your friends, everyone's like lighthearted. There's no like heavy lifting as far as like, we have testing, you know what I mean? Like everything is pretty light and everyone's just in a good mood. I feel like the first week of school is something almost exactly like that, right? Like everyone's excited, new books, new like schooling stuff. Everyone's like, the school looks perfect, everything's great. And, teachers are generally kind of like, all right, we're going to take it easy this week. We're just getting to know it. So there's a lot of like excitement. So, yeah, I think my kids are excited. I'm excited. Yesterday I had my first day of classes with the middle school students in our school. And, that's exciting too. So, yeah, it's a lot of hope and optimism and good things. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to be back. Summer is fun. Everyone loves the summer, but vacation means nothing if you're on vacation all the time, right? So you have to kind of get back to it, and we can delight in the work of the day. Especially when it's really easy, like the first week of school.
Right, and for me too. Seeing everybody coming back and seeing those beautiful smiley faces, they're ready to learn, ready to discover the world that they live in, and be the future of it. That's exactly what it is, right? Like we've been all doing the same thing. Now it's time for a new generation to go through it, and it is exciting to see and to learn too. You know how they see the world with their own eyes. So. Great to have everyone back, and it's good to go back to a schedule. That's what I was miss. Always, I miss that the most. Having schedule like this day, this day, this day, this day. It's just so much easier to have your head straight. But speaking about going straight, going with the ways and directions that we are supposed to, as we are going through the year pretty quickly, this the 23rd Sunday in ordinary time. The readings might seem a little bit more heavier, but I think last week was too. But still, we are in the school, so sometimes we need to hear. Okay, something needs to be changed. Something needs to be done, and we're coming as we are nearing to the end of liturgical year. We'll hear more of those words of not only encouragement, but something needs to be done if it didn't happen just yet. So let's start with the Book of Wisdom. Let's see the what the Lord speaks to us this Sunday. And at the very beginning of it, from the Book of Wisdom, in our first reading, we will hear, "Who can know God's counsel, or who can conceive what the Lord intends?" This sentence for me is always like, hmm, how can I know what He wants from me? How can I know if I'm doing the right thing? Well, not only our faith is the component of that, but also our willingness to do what the Lord wants us to do. And in the book of wisdom in the Old Testament, the prophets are foretelling, right? God was giving them direction where they should direct their lives and how they could come closer to Him. Whereas for us, people of the New Testament, we see actually the fulfillment of all of that in Jesus Christ and in all that He has brought through the words of His teaching and in the example of His life as a human. And to know what the Lord's intentions are, well, we know exactly. He wants us to grow stronger in grace. He wants us to grow stronger in the light of heaven, of His kingdom. He wants us to journey with Him. And that journey is not like the people of the Old Testament. For us, that journey is filled with God's presence in us through Jesus Christ, through the Eucharist itself and the sacraments that we receive. And so our journey is a little bit different, and and the things that we need to do, we should do, to come closer and grow stronger in the faith, is in Jesus Christ. So who can know God's counsel or who can foresee what the Lord intends? Well, we know that. However, even though we know it, we not always agree with it, or we try to find the ways that might seem a little bit easier, might seem that there is something else that can be done. And sure, we don't have to do exactly the same thing as Jesus, become carpenters or become a fisherman, or any other things. We have the journey of our own personal life. What we are to do is bring all of that and sanctify it, and sanctify every single profession that we have in our world today that we are involved with. We need to bring our families to journey with and in the faith that we have received, and bring all that to the Lord. And we do that by not only our prayer time that we offer every single day, morning and evening, or even throughout the day when we have a chance, not only as we come to the church on Sunday to fulfill the Lord's Day, the day that, yes, it is the Lord's day, as we call it, but this day is given to us so that we may receive what we need to continue our journey of faith. It was given to us so that we can embrace our everyday of life with the will of God and see what needs to be done, what tools we can take from the scriptures, from our Lord's life, from the life of the people of the Old Testament, and see in our life what needs to be done, what God intends us as we continue the journey of life, and the life that needs to lead us into holiness of here and now. So what God intends? God intends us to journey with Him, to be safe, to live with Him for all eternity, and that's the intention. One of the intentions. I shouldn't say the only one, one of, but it is the most important for us, so that when we are fixed on it, we will be able to do what is necessary, do what is needed, and be closer to God and share all those beautiful gifts with all those we meet. So that's what where my focus, my thoughts are when I'm looking at this sentence, and of course, in the image of my own personal life as a child of God, as a priest, with the responsibilities that I have every day, and that's what I hope to achieve, even through the failures of my everyday life. I hope I will be able to grow stronger because of them and see God's grace of healing and raising me up, even if I fail. So that's where I'm going to end. I'm going to pass it on to John.
Well, Father, I was thinking, at this line from the first line from the Book of Wisdom that we're here in the first reading, and from what you were saying too, it makes me think of probably the number one question that my kids asked me and my wife this summer, because we're just talking about like summer ending and stuff. So the number one question that we got asked nearly every single day was, "What are we doing today?" Right? And as the summer kind of moved along, and this goes from like my 5-year-old up to my 17-year-old, right? Like the number one most common question was like, "What are we doing today?" They stroll out of bed, like, they're kind of still rubbing like, the sleep from their eyes, like, and I would over the course of the summer get more and more sarcastic or whatever, and be like, "We're going to Disney World," and they'd be like, "No, we're not." And I'd be like, "We're going to the moon." "No, we're not." Like, and it was just like the most ridiculous things, just to kind of feel like, because I was just like, like, don't expect something marvelous today. Like, it's gonna, like, you're gonna do some schoolwork. We're gonna, like, summer work, whatever they have to do, like some house things, and like, maybe we'll find some time to do something fun. All right. So one thing that my kids didn't ask, every now and then, I would get one of them would say something like this. Not what are we doing today, but like, what are we doing this weekend? And I'd be like, oh, you're thinking ahead 3 days from now. And then get the same snarky response back from me. Okay. Um, but here's what the question they never asked. They never asked, what are we doing for retirement, Dad? What are we doing for like my great grandchildren? Like, what? Like, I probably would be like completely flabbergasted if they asked that question. But they weren't planning ahead too far. It was always like, what are we doing today? What are we doing like for breakfast? What are we doing? Like, maybe we'll stretch it out to like this weekend. But they were definitely not looking far ahead into like the big picture plans. And it's interesting to reflect upon that because they're kids. But I think, we as adults even like fall victim to thinking like kids when it comes to the Lord, right? We think, Lord, what are the plans for the day? And it's like, are you going to give me all the good things? Are you going to give me all the blessings, all the happy times, all of the things I desire that will make everything just better and nicer and more comfortable and whatever? But I think the struggle that we have is kind of thinking, what's the bigger plan that God has for us, right? Like we struggle to think just through the day, but like the weekend or like next year, or what is God's plans for my life? What is God's plans for the world? Like, and the Lord is not like limited. And so he doesn't think in terms of like, all right, like I've got an hour to kill. I guess I'll talk to Father Matt for a little while and see what's going on with him. Like he's, he's eternal. And so he's everywhere at the same time in the same kind of capacity. And so, going back to this line from the Book of Wisdom, who can know God's counsel? Who can conceive what the Lord intends? The frustrations that we have oftentimes as believers is thinking that like we've got God figured out and we've got like, God's plan figured out and like here's what we're going to do, here's the plan of the day. And then inevitably something happens, like whether it's like, some sort of tragedy or some sort of suffering or some sort of just inconvenience that just kind of messes with our day, our week, our month, our year, our decade, like whatever it is. And we tend to look at God and say, do you even know what's going on? Like, I thought you had a plan. It doesn't seem like you have a plan. Like, what is the deal? Because if you had a plan, then you would make things better because you're supposed to make things better because you're God and you're good and loving. And, you know, of course, you should just make everything. And, there's a kind of a humbling that's needed, I think, for all of us. And I'll speak for myself of kind of trying to take a deep breath and realize God's plans, God's intentions are far bigger than just today. And so while the Lord does care about today, and so every little detail down to like, whether or not my cup of coffee is just right, or like, I have some sort of health crisis, like the Lord does care. He's intimately involved, but it's all in the context of something grander, right? And ultimately moving us towards eternal life. And so the Lord uses everything from like, a bad cup of coffee to like a terrible tragedy in our lives to try to draw us to something bigger, something greater, from terrible things to wonderful things. And the frustration that we have is that we don't know. And it's impossible for us to know because we don't have the capacity because we're not limitless. We're finite, and that becomes a place of frustration. So ultimately, I think we have to kind of surrender ourselves like small children and just say, Lord, I don't know what your intentions are. I don't know what your counsel is. I don't know what your plans are, but I do trust that you are good, that you are loving, that you love me, and that you want what's good for me. And I'll just kind of go with the flow, if you will. Like just to bring it back to my kids, like, the what are we doing for today? Like, okay, like, I don't know. But know what? You're gonna have some food, like you're gonna have some work, you're gonna have some fun times, and ultimately you're gonna be with your family that loves you. And that's what matters. And you're gonna be fine and you're gonna be safe. And that's the Lord has something similar, but in a more far grander scope in mind for us. Like, okay, you want to know the plans? Great. Don't worry about it. Like, sit back. Like, you'll get them as they come along, but know that, like, He's the Lord, that He cares, that He's got something grander, something better, something glorious in mind for us. And it may take days or weeks or months or years or decades to kind of achieve that or our entire lifetime to kind of bring us to that place of glory. But that's a bitter pill to swallow sometimes when you're just kind of like, if you're like me and you're like my kids, you're just like, no, what's the plan? Tell me the plan. And we're not always going to know, but we have to kind of surrender with a childlike trust. And I think that's a good lesson to consider.
And sure enough, if we don't allow the Lord, well, on our own, will be probably much tougher than without Him. So, as we conclude, I just want to share, the beautiful, beautiful thing that is going to happen over this weekend, and that is the canonization of the two men, Carlo Acutis and Piero Giorgio Frassati. I hope you'll be able to watch it. I'm sure EWTN and Catholic News server or network will have the transmission. So I hope you will watch it. We'll talk a little bit more, of course, in the church about this too. And as I told Jim before we started recording this video today, Carlo Acutis would have been exactly my age that I am right now if he was alive. And he is going to be called from this weekend the saint. But I'm not trying, but yeah, that pushes a little bit more heaviness on my shoulders, but a beautiful one. But sainthood, holiness, is not something that is only a promise. People do come to the glory of being called holy ones of God, and we are all called in just the same way. From a simple boy who knew how to use computer and all that comes. Or Pier Giorgio, who was helping those who were in need. We'll talk a little bit more about them and share some information about them over this weekend. So I hope as you come, you will be even more interested in the lives of those two new saints of our century, of our time, that show us that it's possible, that it is possible. With that being said, God bless you all, guys. We'll see you next week. But before that, we'll see you in the church. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.